Welcome to AGS Stories. You won't believe this one. It's time to grab a seat and get comfortable because today's story is one you won't want to miss. Betrayal is painful, but when it comes from family, it cuts even deeper. Imagine working your entire life to achieve something meaningful, only to have it stolen from you by your own brother, the one person you thought you could trust. That's exactly what happened in today's jaw-dropping AGS story. My brother stole my house, locked me out, and acted like I didn't exist. But instead of losing my temper, I did something he never expected. Revenge isn't always about getting even. It's about playing smarter. Stick around to find out how I turned the tables, made him regret everything, and whether or not I gave him a second chance. Because sometimes justice comes in ways you never see coming. Imagine this. You work your entire life, sacrifice everything, and finally achieve something huge. Something that's yours. A place to call home. And then, in the blink of an eye, it's stolen. Not by a stranger. Not by some con artist off the street. By your own brother. I'm Jacob, 31 years old. And this is the story of how my own flesh and blood betrayed me in the worst way possible. For years, I worked nonstop, saving every dollar I could. I skipped vacations, drove the same beat-up car for a decade, and lived as frugally as possible, all for one dream, buying my first home. And when I finally did, it felt like I had made it. A beautiful, three-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. Something I could build my future in. But before I even got the chance to settle in, Ryan, my older brother, decided he wanted it for himself. It happened so fast, I barely saw it coming. One moment, he was congratulating me, saying how proud he was. The next, he was inside my house, changing the locks. When I came back after a work trip, my keys didn't work. My own damn house, and I couldn't get in. I pounded on the door, called him, even threatened to call the cops. And when he finally answered, all he did was smirk and say, "You don't need this place. I need it more than you do." I was stunned, angry. But most of all, I felt betrayed. Ryan took what was mine without a second thought, living in my home like it was always his. He thought I would just let it slide, but he had no idea what was coming. Because if he wanted to play dirty, I was about to play smarter. I always thought family was supposed to have your back. That no matter what, in the end, blood was thicker than water. But I learned the hard way. That's not always true. Growing up, my brother Ryan and I were close. He was 3 years older than me, the guy I looked up to when I was a kid. Sure, we had our fights, but nothing serious, just the usual brotherly stuff. At the end of the day, I always believed we'd be there for each other. Then our parents passed away. It was sudden, a car accident. One moment, we were a family, and the next, I was sitting in a lawyer's office with Ryan, listening to the reading of their will. They left behind a house, the home we grew up in, and to my surprise, they left it to me. Not because they loved Ryan any less, but because I was the one who had stayed behind, the one who took care of them in their final years. While Ryan was off living his life, barely checking in, I was the one who made sure mom and dad were okay. I handled the hospital visits, the medications, the late-night phone calls when they needed something. I earned that house. Ryan didn't argue at the time. In fact, he acted like he was happy for me. Said it was only fair, that he completely understood. I thought that was the end of it, but I should have known better. A few months passed. I officially became the homeowner, fixed the place up, and was finally getting ready to move in. Everything seemed fine. Then one day, I went on a work trip. I was only supposed to be gone for a week. When I came back, my keys didn't work. At first, I thought I had made a mistake, maybe grabbed the wrong set. But then I noticed something even stranger. Ryan's car was parked in the driveway. Confused, I knocked on the door. No answer. I rang the doorbell. Nothing. Finally, after what felt like forever, Ryan opened the door, wearing my slippers. And when I saw the smug look on his face, my stomach dropped. "Hey man, what's up?" he said casually, like he hadn't just broken into my house and made himself comfortable. I took a step back. "What the hell, Ryan? What are you doing in my house?" He sighed. Leaning against the doorframe like this was some minor inconvenience. "Look, I know this seems bad, but hear me out. I needed a place to stay. And well, you're doing fine. You have money, a good job. You'll be fine." I blinked. "You changed the locks?" "Had to," he shrugged. "You weren't here. and I needed to move in. It's not like you were using the place. I was speechless. He wasn't just squatting. He had taken over my house. I stepped forward, anger boiling in my chest. This isn't yours, Ryan. Mom and Dad left it to me. You have no right to be here. That's when he pulled out the guilt card. Mom and Dad would have wanted this, he said, shaking his head. They want me to have a place to stay, Jacob. You have options. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own brother, stealing from me and acting like he was the victim. I did everything I could. I called the cops, but because he was technically family and had been living there for over a week, it became a civil matter. They said I had to go through the legal system to evict him. I tried talking to other family members, but no one wanted to get involved. Some even suggested I let it go. He's your brother. Just let him stay until he gets back on his feet. Are you kidding me? I worked my ass off for this house. I wasn't just going to roll over and let him take it from me. So I tried reasoning with Ryan one last time. I'll help you find a place, I told him. I'll even pay for your first month's rent. But you need to get out of my house. He laughed in my face. Why would I leave when I have everything I need right here? And that's when I knew. He never planned to leave. That night, I sat in my car outside my own house, staring at the windows, watching the lights turn on and off inside. At least, that's what he thought. Because if he wanted to play dirty, I was about to play smarter. I wasn't just going to take my house back. I was going to make sure he regretted ever crossing me. But before I tell you what I did, what would you do in my situation? Let me know in the comments. Would you fight him head on? Would you take revenge? Or would you walk away? Because I was about to do something he never saw coming. Wow, you guys had some strong opinions on this one. And honestly, I can't blame you. This wasn't just some petty sibling fight. This was betrayal. I read through all your comments, and trust me, you guys did not hold back. Let's check out some of the most liked ones. Add justice for Jacob, he stole from you. Take him to court and kick him out. No mercy for people who take advantage of family. At Savage Queen 97, family or not, a thief is a thief. Get your house back at any cost. He played dirty. Now it's your turn. At Revenge Master 5000, revenge is best served cold. Whatever you did, I hope it was good. He needs to learn a hard lesson. It's crazy to see how many of you were just as angry as I was. Some of you were all about legal justice, while others, you wanted to see Ryan suffer before he learned his lesson. And honestly, I felt the same way. A lot of you suggested that I should have taken him to court right away. Trust me, that was my first instinct. But here's the thing, it wasn't that simple. The cops told me it was a civil matter, which meant I had to file for eviction through the legal system. And if you've ever dealt with that, you know it can take months, even years, to get someone out. Meanwhile, Ryan would still be living in my house, rent-free, laughing at me the entire time. And after the way he smirked at me at the front door, I wasn't about to let him win that easily. Some of you asked if I took it too far. And at the time, that thought crossed my mind too. Revenge isn't always the best path. But this wasn't just about getting back at him. This was about justice. Ryan didn't just steal from me. He took advantage of my kindness. He looked me in the eye, knowing exactly what he was doing, and still decided to screw me over. So, did I go too far? Maybe. But if he wanted to play dirty, I was about to outsmart him in a way he never saw coming. What do you think? Would you have done the same? Or would you have tried to take the legal route, even if it took forever? Let me know in the comments, because things were about to get very interesting. After reading all your comments, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let Ryan get away with this. A lot of you told me to take the legal route, to fight him in court and evict him. And trust me, I considered it. But the system moves slow, and Ryan was already too comfortable in my house. If I wanted my home back, I needed to outthink him. So, I got creative. The first thing I did was stop paying the property taxes. Now, before you freak out, let me explain. The house was legally mine. That meant the tax bills were under my name. But here's the catch. If I didn't pay them, the county would eventually come knocking. And guess who was the only person living in that house? Ryan. At first, I waited. I wanted to see how long it would take before he noticed. And sure enough, a few months later, the letters started piling up in the mailbox. One day, I got a text from him. Ryan, hey, did you forget to pay the property taxes? There are a bunch of overdue notices here. I smiled at my phone. He was finally feeling the pressure. But I wasn't done yet. Since Ryan wasn't on any lease or deed, technically, he was an unauthorized occupant. That meant I could file a report with the local authorities. So, that's exactly what I did. I submitted a formal complaint that someone was illegally occupying my property. A few weeks later, an inspector showed up at the house. According to my neighbor, who was keeping an eye on things, Ryan freaked out. The inspector asked for proof of residency, and of course, Ryan had none. He wasn't paying rent. He wasn't on the deed. He had nothing. That's when I got another angry text. Ryan, dude, why are the authorities checking the house? Are you trying to get me kicked out? I ignored him. He still had no idea what was coming next. Now here's where things got really interesting. After seeing how stubborn Ryan was, after all the warnings, the notices, and the legal threats, I realized he wasn't going to leave on his own. So, I made a decision that even I wasn't sure about at first. I sold the house. Yes, you heard that right. I found a real estate investor who was planning to tear the place down and build something new. It was a win-win for me. I got more than the house was worth, and best of all, Ryan wouldn't have a choice. When the sale was finalized, I sent him a final notice. You need to be out by the end of the month. The new owners are coming to start demolition. At first, there was silence. Then my phone blew up with messages. Ryan, you can't do this. I live here. Ryan, where am I supposed to go? Ryan, we're family. You're actually kicking me out onto the street? I read those texts with a straight face. Where was this concern when he stole my house? Where was this guilt when he locked me out? I didn't respond. I let him sit with the reality that he had finally lost. The last time I saw Ryan was the day before he had to leave. I showed up at the house, and he was standing outside, a few bags at his feet. For the first time in months, he actually looked nervous. So that's it, he asked. You're just going to leave me with nothing? I folded my arms. You left yourself with nothing. I gave you chances, Ryan. You didn't take them. He scoffed, shaking his head. You're so cold, man. We're brothers. That's when I finally lost it. No, Ryan. Brothers don't steal from each other. Brothers don't lie and cheat and act like victims when they get caught. You did this to yourself. He opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Because he knew I was right. And with that, I turned around and walked away. No more fights. No more arguments. Just justice. A few weeks later, I got another text. Ryan, I messed up. Can we talk? And now I have a decision to make. He's out of my house. He lost everything. But do I help him? Do I give him another chance? Or do I let him live with the consequences of what he did? I need your advice. What would you do? Let me know in the comments, because I still haven't decided. After everything that happened, I thought I was done with Ryan for good. I had won. I got my house back, and he was finally forced to face the consequences of his actions. But then I got that text. Ryan, I messed up. Can we talk? And just like that, all the anger I had been holding on to started to mix with something else, doubt. I had every reason to ignore him. Every reason to let him struggle, just like he let me struggle when he took my home. But at the same time, was I really the kind of person who could turn my back on family forever? I wasn't sure. So I turned to you guys. I read through hundreds of comments, and wow, you all had some strong opinions on this one. Here are a couple that really stood out. At no second chances. He never cared about you before. Why should you care now? The only reason he's reaching out is because he has no other choice. He's not sorry for what he did. He's sorry he got caught. At Life Goes On 86, revenge is done. Now it's time to move on. You don't have to let him back into your life, but carrying this anger forever isn't worth it. If you help him, make sure it's on your terms. Reading these comments made me realize something. I wasn't asking myself if I should help him. I was asking myself why I even felt the need to. Did I actually believe he had changed? Or was I just feeling guilty because, deep down, no matter how much he hurt me, he was still my brother? A lot of you suggested giving him one final test, make him prove he's changed before even considering helping him. And honestly, that might just be what I do. Because after everything he put me through, if he really wants a second chance, he's going to have to earn it. I met with Ryan one last time. When I saw him sitting there, shoulders slumped, staring at the table like he had no fight left in him, I felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. For months, I had been fueled by anger, by a deep sense of betrayal. I had plotted, executed my revenge, and made sure he felt the consequences of his actions. And he did. But now that I was looking at him, truly looking at him, I didn't see the smug, overconfident person who had stolen my house. I saw my brother, the same brother I used to race bikes with as a kid, the same brother who taught me how to throw a football, the one who used to cover for me when I stayed out too late in high school. And for the first time in a long time, I asked myself, was revenge really enough? If you truly want to fix things, prove it. That's what I told him. No handouts. No sympathy lifeline. If he wanted my help, he had to show me that he meant it. I offered him a job opportunity, something small, something manageable, a fresh start, a chance to rebuild. And at first he refused. That's not fair. You should just help me. I sighed. Same old Ryan, always expecting things to be handed to him. But then something changed. Maybe it was the way I stood up and prepared to walk away. Maybe it was the realization that I wasn't budging, that this was his last chance. He hesitated. Then, in a voice that was quieter than I had ever heard from him, he asked, "What kind of job?" It wasn't glamorous. A buddy of mine owned a construction company, and they were looking for laborers. Hard work, long hours, but steady pay and a chance to prove he could be responsible. At first, Ryan struggled. He wasn't used to waking up early, wasn't used to being the one working instead of taking. He complained. He thought about quitting, but slowly something shifted. He started showing up on time, started putting in real effort. I heard from my friend that Ryan was actually trying. It wasn't immediate, and it wasn't easy. But for the first time in his life, he was standing on his own 2 feet. And that's when I knew I had done the right thing. Months passed. Ryan worked his way up from laborer to site supervisor. He got his own small apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was his. He even started paying back some of the money he owed me. Not because I asked him to, but because he wanted to. One day he called me. "Hey, you want to grab lunch?" It wasn't much, just a simple offer, but it meant everything. We met at a small diner, the kind we used to eat at when we were kids. It was awkward at first. We hadn't sat across from each other like this in years. But then, little by little, the conversation flowed. We talked about work, about life, about things we never really said to each other before. And then, out of nowhere, Ryan sighed. I was a real piece of crap, huh? I raised an eyebrow. That's putting it lightly. He laughed. A real laugh. Not the cocky, smug one he used to throw around. "I don't know why you didn't just leave me out there," he admitted. "I wouldn't have blamed you." I leaned back, thinking about that. Why didn't I? The truth was, I had every reason to cut him off forever. But something deep down told me that if I didn't give him this one last push, he would never change. And I guess, in the end, I still wanted my brother back. Ryan isn't perfect. He still has his flaws. But he's finally learning. And me? I finally have peace. I don't regret making him suffer the consequences of his actions. I don't regret the revenge, the lessons, the tough love. But I also don't regret giving him one last chance. Because now, instead of sitting across from a broken man, I see someone who is finally putting his life together. We're not the same as we were before. We'll never be. But we're building something new, something better. So after everything, I'd say we both won. What do you think? Would you have done the same? Or would you have walked away forever? Let me know in the comments. And if you love stories like this, hit subscribe, because real life, it's full of twists you never see coming. Looking back on everything that happened, this story wasn't just about revenge, justice, or even family. It was about growth. In 2025, we live in a time where personal boundaries are more important than ever. People talk about cutting off toxic family members, about going no contact when someone wrongs you. And while sometimes that's necessary, what I learned is that people can change, but only if they truly want to. Ryan's betrayal taught me that not everyone who says they love you will treat you with love. Some people will take from you, manipulate you, and justify it however they can. And when they finally face consequences, they don't always feel bad for what they did. They feel bad that they got caught. But here's the thing. Revenge alone doesn't bring peace. It feels good in the moment, sure. But holding on to anger forever? That just gives the person who hurt you more power over your life. Real justice comes when you can move forward, whether or not the other person ever does. At first, I was convinced that Ryan would never change. And maybe if I had let him spiral, he wouldn't have. But by giving him one last structured chance, on my terms, not his, I gave him the space to either step up or prove me right. And for once in his life, he chose to step up. This story is proof that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it sure as hell doesn't mean allowing someone to walk all over you again. But sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone, it's giving them the tools to fix what they broke and watching if they actually do it. So, now I want to hear from you. Speech balloon, did I make the right choice by giving Ryan another chance? Or should I have walked away forever? Should I keep a close eye on him? Or do you think he's really changed for good? What would you have done differently if this had happened to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Let's talk about it. And if you love stories like this, hit that subscribe button for more real-life betrayals, shocking twists, and hard-learned life lessons. See you in the next one.